Hey y'all, so do you want to figure out how to be a better fundraiser for your nonprofit? I have 3 tips for you today. So, if you are a new nonprofit founder or just you have a small nonprofit, right? And you're trying to figure out how to be better at raising money, that's what we're going to talk about today. All right? So, if that's something that you know you want to work on, go ahead and just put a heart in the chat. And also, if you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook and you know there's somebody who could use this information, then make sure you tag them, make sure you share with people so they can get the goodness because we about to go to class. All right, y'all. So really quickly, this is your first time watching me. My name is Tiffany. I created Boss on a Budget to help people start their nonprofits and raise money from the ground up because I was in your shoes and didn't know what to do, where to turn, what worked, what didn't work. And I failed all the time. So I wanted to share my experiences and the knowledge that I've gleaned from those processes to help other people literally across the world because people be talking to me across the world. All right. So let me say hi to a few people. This is what we do on live. So, you just got to be patient with us. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Miss Kim. Hey, More for More. I see y'all coming in. Thank y'all so much for joining. And again, don't forget to share with somebody who needs this information. We're going to jump right in. I hope you all had a great Mother's Day for all the mothers out there. Thank you for being the safety net for the children out there everywhere. All right. So, 3 things you can do to become a better fundraiser for your new nonprofit. These are lessons that I gleaned from the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. I was a panelist last week and it was an awesome experience. They did a really good job. But I was a panelist last week for them and these are some lessons that I learned from being on that panel. Just keep in mind that I was on a panel with his name was Brady. He was from Charity Water. To give you context, Charity Water has raised millions of dollars, but they have a monthly giving program and they have 44,000 monthly donors. So 44,000 people are giving them money every month. So even if those people just gave $1, they're making $44,000 a month. That's how big Charity Water is, okay? So I'm on the stage with him and another awesome consultant who talked about storytelling. This is what I gleaned from that. This is the first thing. Y'all with me? Put number 1 in the chat if y'all with me. You really have to immerse yourself in the nonprofit trends. Let's just say that. So just put trends in the chat. Sometimes the thing that frustrates me a little bit about people who talk about nonprofit fundraising is that a lot of times they use language or they talk with the assumption that people know what they talk about. They talk with the assumption that people have the foundation that's needed to be able to have those really productive conversations about how to do fundraising. And they use terms like donor acquisition. And sometimes people don't even understand what a donor is or that they should even be focusing on donors. And that's kind of the gap that I wanted to fill because I found that people were just talking over my head when I was trying to learn more from my own experiences, right? And it was just a lot of textbook explanations, but I couldn't get it, right? But I understand though that their role is so pivotal. Consultants that talk about data, consultants that talk about trends and what's going on in the nonprofit space are crucial, and you should be paying attention to them, right? You should be following them, right? There are people who talk about the latest trends. You should be looking at candid.org. You should be paying attention to the Lilly School of Philanthropy. They produce data all the time. There are other consultants that I'm blanking on, but they're on LinkedIn. If you really want them, you can email me and ask. But you really should be clued in to those people. Here are some trends that people are talking about, right? So people are talking about how folks are giving less. That's what's going on right now in the data that they've pulled. Every year they pull data on giving, and they're talking about how people are giving less. And it's an interesting dynamic because nonprofits are raising more money, but less people are giving, right? And the people who have been giving, some of them are giving less. And the dynamic in all of that is that people who are wealthy are giving large gifts. And there's some things going on, like with McKenzie Scott. How many of y'all know McKenzie Scott? You should know by now, right? There's some things going on where people who are wealthy are using certain things to give, like donor advised funds and stuff like that. But people who are, normal everyday people who don't have access to a lot of wealth aren't necessarily giving right now, right? Or they're giving less. So there's a lot of chatter about that. I have my own opinions about that, right? I trust data. I'm a person who has a data background and I believe in data, but I also believe that data have limitations. That there's a lot of person to person giving that data are not collecting. Hey, Tiffany, APP member, right? So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things that they're missing in that data, but there's still a trend to say that the economy is affecting people. That's basically what they're saying. You need to know that. You need to understand what that means for you and how you adjust. That does not mean you don't ask. That's the thing right there. That doesn't mean you don't ask people. That doesn't mean you make assumptions for people and say, well, they must not have any money, so I can't ask. How could I? How could I ask people to give when I know that the economy is so tough that people just can't give? Do not make assumptions for people. People are grown. Do not take away that power from them to be able to make a decision about whether or not they want to help somebody, because that's the decision they're making when they're giving to you. Don't take that power away from them. Extend the invitation for somebody to give and let them make that decision. But know that you may need to adjust your approach, right? So you may want to ask for smaller gifts on a recurring basis. If you watch the trends that's going on in nonprofit right now, I hear a lot of people talking about two things: recurring giving, so that means people give every month, and peer-to-peer fundraising. So you know what that means to me? That you got to build a strong foundation of small givers. Small givers, let me just say $50 or less, right? And you got to build your fundraising strategy on those small givers. But just know that if you invest in those small givers, that builds, that grows, that snowballs eventually. And just because people aren't giving as much in 2024 doesn't mean that people won't give in 2025 or that they'll stop giving completely. So I just need y'all to know that one way to become better at this is to know the landscape, understand the trends so that you can approach this the right way, right? Another trend that I'm seeing, that I see in the data and what people talk about, is people want to be attached to the work. People want to be much more personal with the work. They want to feel like they're a part of it. And if you look at the data, people who volunteer are way more likely to give to you than people who have not volunteered. So if you can engage people in your work, in the projects that you do, then they're way more likely to give you money. Did you know that? But if you think about how fundraising works, it makes a lot of sense, which is related to one of my other points. But I just said all that to say, y'all, follow the data, look at the trends. Do not be afraid of the data. Can y'all just let me know? Because y'all got real quiet in the chat. That is so funny. Y'all got so quiet. Oh my God. In the chat once I started talking about data and trends. We're not going to shy away from this. We are not. Because I want you to be equipped. I want you to be equipped. I want you to go into these rooms, and when you're talking about your nonprofit, you understand what's happening around you, and that's what leaders do. Leaders look at the trends, they listen, and they adjust. So we're training you up to be leaders. We're training you up to last. So part of that is understanding the data, understanding the trends, and knowing how to move as a result. Make sense? Tiffany said, make your data sound bite. The data. Was that how it was? I don't know. I be coming up with random stuff. Let's go. The data. I feel like I did that one time. All right. So understand the data, understand the trends. Number two, this one is really important. Drop number two in the chat just to let me know you're still here. Because, everybody left me hanging on the data except Tiffany. But, just drop number two in the chat to let me know you're still here. Number two, to become a better fundraiser is to humanize what you're doing. What do you mean by that, Tiffany? So, what I need you to understand is it's stressful asking for money, ain't it? Ain't it stressful when you know you need money for your programming, or you have a goal and you're trying to raise it and you don't know if you're going to hit that goal, or you got an event? Tiffany just had a Mother's Day tea. Woo woo! Hype it up, hold up the light in Alabama, right? So you have an event and you're stressed and worried about whether or not you're going to raise enough money. That's stressful. So when you're operating in stress, in worry, in anxiety, then it affects how you move. So when you ask for money, there's this looming thing behind you, like, I hope these people give me money. And then if people say no, there's this thing like, why did they say no to me? This is the voice in the back of your head. This is my thing for voice in the back of your head. Why didn't they give me money? Don't they know we need money? Or they didn't give us money. There must be something wrong with us. Or they didn't give us money. I must be doing something wrong. They didn't give us money. I'm terrible at this. I'm not a good fundraiser. Any of those sound familiar to you? Do you say any of those things to yourself? What I want you to do to become better at fundraising is to understand that people are human. And even when people want to support you by giving you money, sometimes they can't. Sometimes they may not have it. Or sometimes they forget. Or sometimes they're ready to give it to you and then something comes up in their life. That doesn't mean that your mission isn't worthy. That doesn't mean that you should stop. But see, if you focus on that no, if you focus on that rejection, then that's going to stop you. Then you say things to yourself like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at asking for money, right? I'm just not good at it. Like you say these things to yourself and you don't realize by saying these things to yourself, you're actually coaching yourself to stop. You're coaching yourself for failure. But what I want you to understand is sometimes no is a perfectly reasonable response. Can I get an amen on that? Sometimes people tell you no, and that's okay. They're not the enemy because they tell you no. And guess what? Check this out. Sometimes people say no, and then the next time you ask them, it's going to be a yes. Sometimes people say no on purpose to see how you move. And sometimes people say no because they just don't have it. But when the next opportunity comes around, they can give. But when you limit people to what they can do for you right now, you handicap yourself. So that's what I need you to understand, that first of all, this is a process, that the money's just not going to fall into your lap, right? The example I gave for Charity Water, they had to build up to getting 44,000 monthly givers. But even in that, they had an awesome marketing team and they were good at storytelling and they had money to start with. Let's be real. The guy who started it had money. so that's why I definitely need you to come down to earth and give yourself grace that you are good at this. You may be rusty, you may need practice, but you can be good at talking about your organization and talking about the money you need to do good work. You're so passionate about this that you decided to start an organization and you didn't even know if this was going to work. So you can absolutely talk about your work. That's what fundraising is. Fundraising is getting people excited about the work that you're doing and extending the offer for them to do that. There are tactics and strategies to make this more effective, yes. But that doesn't mean you're horrible at it. That just means you haven't learned that tactic yet. That just means you haven't learned that strategy yet. But that's not a reflection of who you are or who you are not. Can I get an amen on that? Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you, Aubrey. So I need you to bring this down in human terms. That sometimes, like when people want to make a decision about their money, it takes them a long time. I'm one of those people. So first of all, I'm cheap. I don't like spending no large amount of money. When you ask me to spend a large amount of money, I'm gonna think about that thing, knowing I need it. I'm gonna think about it. I'm a him and haw. I'm just one of those people. It's just built, it's just in me. That doesn't mean I don't care. That doesn't mean that I know deep down that I need to do that or give that money, but I just take my time. And that's a lot of people. They take their time. It's their money. That's what you have to remember. It's their money. So they have to be given the space and the room to make the decision about where they want to spend their money. But when we get so caught up of like, come on, y'all, I've asked you like twice, why aren't you giving me money? Like when we get so caught up in that, it just creates unnecessary anxiety, strain that you don't need. You don't need to ask for money from a place of desperation. Can I say that one more time? You don't need to ask for money from a place of desperation. You don't, right? So I don't want you I just don't want you to come from that place, right? I need you to understand that this takes time and that's okay. Because that's just, you're dealing with humans. You're dealing with people who need to make decisions and they want to make decisions about their money. And people give to things that they trust. So if there's something that indicates that they can't trust it or they need more information, they're not going to give. So that means that you just need to do more work to educate them. And if they're not your donor at that time, that's okay. Move to the next and then circle back around, but focus on sharing your mission and sharing your message. I want to address a comment real quick. Hey, Low Country. Okay, so this is a comment on Facebook. There's a stereotype that small nonprofits are not to be trusted, especially Black-led charities. I want to address this one. Thank you for bringing this up. So I'm a firm believer that two things can be true at one time. I do believe that there are some people who do not trust small nonprofits, and there are some that do not trust Black-led nonprofits. That's absolutely a thing, right? And that's actually a theme that's going to come up in the podcast episode that I'm releasing probably next week. But that shouldn't stop you. You can acknowledge that because there are bigger nonprofits that people don't trust. People don't trust American Red Cross. People don't trust Goodwill because of the stories floating around, right? So that can be true as well. But so acknowledge that, but don't let that stop or change who you are and what your mission is. So I really appreciate you for saying that because that's real. That really is real. And one more thing. So Low Country said, I think organizations along with media are the blame, in my opinion, by not stressing the importance of supporting the smaller boots on the ground nonprofits. And I'm glad you said that too. That's why I talk so much about educating people about your need, right? Educating people about what you see on the ground. Because people give to people. There are always viral moments where people see that there's somebody who needs help and people want to help them. They don't care that if they're giving to an organization or a person. People naturally want to give. And that's what I believe you should focus on. The fact that people want to give, people want to help. And how can you tap into that for people? How can you tap into the things that they naturally want to do? How can you share with them and show them this is a good thing? You should invest in this. All right. So that's number 2. I need y'all to humanize this thing and remember that this just takes time and don't rush the process. Number 3, can we get a number 3 in the chat? Number 3 in the chat. Number 3. All right. Number 3, I just am going to say the word relationship, but I want to give examples and I want to give some shout outs to show you why this matters. So I'm going to shout out a couple of people from APP. APP is my private membership. We talk about fundraising, and it's an accountability group. We get on a call every Monday. We do challenges. We give feedback to each other, all the things. So I want to shout out Rita Key. I want to shout out Veronica Thompson. I want to shout out Kimberly Nussbaum. And Tiffany, I can't remember if this was you too. I think it was. I think it absolutely was you, Tiffany. So all four of these women are working on a fundraising strategy, and they have literally gone out and made relationships with people who work for organizations that eventually gave and donated towards their events or their nonprofits. So Rita's doing a bowling fundraiser. Veronica's launching a peer-to-peer fundraiser. Kimberly's doing a golf fundraiser. Tiffany just had a Mother's Day tea. And they began to identify businesses in their area or people in their area who would be invested in their work. And they developed relationships with those people. They invited them to see their work. Rita does open houses. Veronica had a session with single moms. She works with single moms in Massachusetts and had a bank come out to view the program. And as a result of viewing the program and loving the program, they got together and they donated because they wanted to see the moms succeed. And they loved what they saw. They believed in what they saw and they decided to give. So when you begin to focus on developing relationships, identifying the people you can connect with to share more about what you're doing, to get them involved. That's what I mean by relationship. When you focus on that, then the money comes. So I wanted to give you concrete examples instead of just kind of talking up here. I talk all the time about relationships, but I want to share that this does work. So I don't necessarily recommend you just randomly emailing people asking them to give. You randomly emailing people asking to give to you. They don't know anything about you. They don't really understand your mission. They don't know why they should give or why your mission should matter to them because they have to understand that. But if instead you begin to educate them first, but instead if you begin to understand what they need and what they want from you, right? Then the money starts to come. So I really encourage you to think about the relationships you can make, the opportunities where you can share the work, right? Think about the people who would want to hear about what you're doing, right? Who are the people, whether they're connected to you in your geography, like where you live, or they're people who work in the same profession, or they work with the same kind of people you work with. They are naturally predisposed to want to hear and want to know about this kind of stuff because they're exposed to, they're closer to it. How can you begin to meet those people, share what you do, learn what they're doing, build connections, partner, provide value for them? Those are the things. Have conversations. That's what I want you to focus on when you want to raise more money. When you can focus on that, then you can be a better fundraiser for your organization. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? So I'm just going to recap and just give you guys a chance to ask questions. But I really wanted to share my insights from the Responsive Nonprofit Summit because they had some heavy hitters on it. They had some heavy hitters. They had 75 speakers. And these are people who live and breathe nonprofit fundraising. They know what they're talking about. Now, they may not understand certain contexts, which is the value you bring. So they may not understand community level nonprofits or grassroots giving, but you do because you're doing it right now. You're literally building your expertise right now. I need you to understand that you're an expert in your own right. So don't underestimate what you're going through, your process, your experience right now. You know a lot. You know way more than you think you do. And I need you to tap into that. Okay. So just to recap, understand the landscape, know the data, know the trends that's happening in nonprofits, because that's going to make you smarter, wiser, and more strategic. Number two, humanize the work. Understand that these are humans making decisions about their money. So this takes time. Also, give yourself grace. You are human. You are not a failure because somebody says no. A no is rarely a reflection of your worth. It's not. It's not ever a reflection of your worth. What am I talking about? Right? So humanize the work and give yourself grace. And then focus on connections and relationships. If you focus on these things, you will be better at fundraising. And honestly, some of you haven't got to where you need to go because you gave up. Or you told yourself, I'm not good enough, so you stopped. Or you convinced yourself you're not good at something. How many of y'all told yourself, I'm just not good at fundraising? I'm not good at asking for money. Or I hate asking for money, right? You say these things to yourself. And when you say these things to yourself, you start to internalize them and they impact how you move. But we want to move. Let's just declare this before I drop off. Y'all with me? We want to move in abundance. We want to move in expectation. And we want to dwell in hope. There's a lot of things that we could look at that would make us say, "Ooh, why even try? Why even keep going?" There's so much that's happening around us to discourage us to stop. And if that's what you want to do, fine. But for those who want to keep going, for those who want to see what this can be, we're not going to dwell there. We're going to stay in hope. We're going to be grounded in hope. We're going to be grounded in expectation. We're going to be grounded in abundance. That no matter what happens, there's a lesson for us. And that no matter what happens, somebody will be helped. Somebody will be helped as a result of the work you do. And honestly, that matters more than anything. Doesn't matter if you raise 1 cent or $1,000. Somebody's going to be helped because you're going to make it possible. You're going to make it happen because that's the kind of person you are. And that's what matters. So don't count yourself as a failure. Don't count yourself as somebody who can't do this because you are doing it literally right now. So thank you guys so much. I didn't see any questions. Oh, I do see a question. Look at me about to jump off, trying to skate out. Okay, one question. How long does it take to build an effective funding strategy after establishing your 501c3 status? It depends, because sometimes you can build an effective strategy before you get 501c3 status. There are some people who raise money and then realize, oh snap, we need 501c3 status. So it really does depend on your certain factors: the amount of support you have, the amount of people you know who are willing and to help you and are fired up about your mission. Because the more people you know, the more opportunities to share the mission. And it's also how effective your message is. If you have a really clear and compelling message that people are really excited about, and you're good at messaging that, then you're more likely to be more successful. So it just depends. I wouldn't say there's a time on it, because there are some people who can raise money quickly, and then there are some people it just takes time. So for example, I just talked to a woman who's going to be on my podcast next week. She raised, now it's a nonprofit, but she started a foundation. She raised, I think it was 7 million in 6 months. But she came from philanthropy. You know, she worked at a foundation, so she knew people who worked in philanthropy, but she started asking people, regular people, $100 here. She started small and then she began to leverage that up and she raised millions. So it really does depend on your strategy, how many people you have helping you, who you know. And yeah, I forgot what the other thing was, but I hope that helped. All right, one more thing. Hey, Tiffany, because of you, I didn't look at the no's and the lack of response to our event as an opportunity to make it better next time. Yes, there is power in the no. That's hard to accept. That's really hard to accept. I don't like being rejected. I don't. I have anxiety about no. I do. I'm like, you don't want this? But there really is power in understanding what's behind a no, and understanding that it really, a lot of times, it's not about you. So don't make it about you. Thank you for sharing that, Tiffany. Okay, last question. How did I get into development? Ooh, I got a weird journey into development. So I'm a social worker, and my concentration in grad school was management consulting, and my favorite class in grad school was fundraising. And as a part of grad school, you have to do like a practicum. So my practicum was in a development office at a school for kids who are developmentally disabled in Northeast DC. So I learned there in school, but also through that internship, basically, how to do fundraising. I learned about case statements. I asked for my first donation, got $50. I wrote my first grant proposal, it was $5,000. I won it for their library. So that's how I started. And then I just have, I've come at it different ways. So I worked at a nonprofit and we did a lot of grant writing there. Um, and then I worked for an organization where we work with national foundations. So we do a lot of strategic planning and technical assistance on behalf of the foundations. So I found out how they work. And it's not how you think. And then I also helped my at the time my partner was launching a nonprofit, and I was handling the admin and kind of fundraising side, and I learned in that experience what it's like to raise money when you're literally bootstrapping and using your own money and you don't have any donors. How in the world do you make money to make these programs run? So it was that experience that helped me learn. So it's a bunch of different experiences, but all in all, that has kind of got me here to talk at Boss on the Budget. All right, that was a good question. Thank you for asking that, Aggie. Are you an Aggie? Don't tell my dad. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back Sunday night next week to share information about fundraising. I'm going to be featuring a lot of people on this channel because I want you to learn all the things about nonprofit, about running a business. So I'm going to be inviting a bunch of folks so we can get this information. I'm excited about that. So stay tuned, but I will be back next Sunday to share more information. See y'all. Bye. Bye.